Hi everyone, my name is Stas, and today I'm going to tell you about the plot of the 2022 film called Spiderhead, where inmates are tested with various drugs that induce feelings of fear, anger, and even love.
Okay, yeah, she's starting to look pretty good.
Same. Yeah. You're stunning, you're gorgeous. I'm so sorry, I don't know why I didn't.
This film will tell you about an unusual prison called Spiderhead. Here, inmates receive more comfortable conditions for voluntarily participating in drug trials, outdoor walks, the chance to interact with each other, and the ability to reduce their prison sentence. The film's events begin with us being introduced to an inmate named Ray. He is sitting in front of a glass window behind which is the supervisor of all the experiments, Steve. The supervisor announces the start of another experiment, after which he uses a remote app to inject a certain substance into the guy's bloodstream. Soon the subject starts hearing the simplest jokes, which makes Ray begin to laugh. A couple of minutes later, they start reading him some creepy facts, but the guy's reaction doesn't change. Ray keeps laughing. The next morning in Spiderhead starts off like usual. There will be subjects, and then he announces who among them will participate in the trials. Steve asks Jeff if he would like to try the new compound N40. The guy agrees. In addition to that, he is given another drug that will allow Jeff to describe his condition in as much detail as possible. After the test, Jeff meets with his friend named Lizzie and tries to tell her about the recent events, but he can't get anything out. It turns out that after the drug that allowed one to speak with scientific precision ceased to work, a side effect of degradation set in. Jeff was only able to express that he felt an overwhelming surge of love for everything he saw around him. In the evening, Jeff remembers the events that led him to prison. Some time ago, at one of the parties, the guy decided to get behind the wheel while drunk, which led to terrible consequences. At the beginning of the next day, Jeff is called in again to continue the trial of the substance N40, which has come to be called Cupid. This time, the drug will be tested on him and a girl named Kitre. Initially, the girl rated the guy 5 out of 10.
And Heather?
He's alright. A 5 on a good day.
But after the drug was administered, she immediately changed her mind. When Steve increases the drug dosage, the couple kiss and undress. Jeff and Keeter confess love, ignoring both the cameras and the witnesses. The experiment ends with Jeff and Keeter confessing their love for each other. Steve considers this result a real achievement. He asks his partner Mark to keep a close eye on everything that happens next. When Cupid stopped working, the subjects felt awkward. They decide to forget about what happened and not tell anyone about it. After the experiment, Jeff went back to his usual routine and continued to hang out with Lizzie as if nothing had happened. When the next day comes, Jeff takes Cupid in a double dose. Soon after that, an unkempt woman enters his room who is much older than the guy. As soon as the drug starts to take effect, Jeff's disgust for the woman disappears, and he has a great time with her. After this, Jeff asks Mark to transfer him out of the kitchen so that he no longer crosses paths with Lizzie. He explains his request by saying that he feels awkward continuing to interact with his girlfriend. The next day, Steve brings Jeff and shows him his partners from the Cupid test. The curator lets Jeff choose who gets the fear and pain substance. Jeff is unsure, so the experiment stops, is called off. Friday arrives. Jeff, while out for a walk, calls his girlfriend who was with him the night of the accident, but he only gets the voicemail. Jeff spends the evening with Lizzie. He sets up a little surprise for her. When Jeff finds himself back in the experiment room, he sees Rogan standing in front of him, a huge man with tattoos all over his body. At first he became scared because he decided that Cupid would be tested on him again.
No way, guys, come on!
Relax.
We know what it does. Okay, we've all seen what it does.
But fortunately, nothing happens, and the men are simply let go after a few minutes of silence. Jeff begins to guess what just happened. He and Rogan were partners of one of the inmates, and she, along with Steve, was behind the glass deciding who would receive the unpleasant Darkenflox. Jeff bursts into Steve's office and confirms his suspicion. There was a trick. The curator shows the experiment's diagram and insists that it must be completed. Jeff speaks out against it. Expulsion for disliking, Jeff remains calm. He can return to the regular prison at any moment. Jeff calms down, and during the subsequent tests, he no longer asks questions or speaks out against anything. Steve sends Mark off for the weekend, and he himself injects Cupid to experience joy and pleasure. Meanwhile, the tests continue. Steve tells Jeff that he will still have to choose one of the girls who will receive a dose of Darkenflox. The guy tries to refuse again, but the curator puts him in a tough spot. Either he chooses a girl or he goes back to regular prison. Jeff, reluctantly, makes a choice. The victim of the unpleasant experiment is a trick. The girl starts to cry and panic. Jeff calmly comments on everything that is happening to her. The goal of the experiment has been achieved. Suddenly, there's a leak in the substance delivery device and the trick goes into a frenzy. The girl grabs a sharp object and ends the experiment prematurely. While Steve and Mark are busy with the girl, Jeff notices the curator's keys on the floor and finds a notebook with notes about upcoming experiments. What he learns frightens him. At the last moment, Jeff manages to put everything back in its place so that Steve doesn't suspect anything. A little later, Steve threatens Mark that no one should find out about what happened, or he will turn everyone in. After a while, Lizzie is invited for the experiment for the first time. They administer Darkenflox to her. She feels very unwell.
Hey, Lizzie? Lizzie, it's just a stapler. Should we pack it in?
After the experiment, the girl meets with Jeff and confesses that she wants to go back to regular prison. In response to this, Jeff shares the details of his accident. It turns out that not only his friend died back then, but also his girlfriend. That's why the guy endures the drug trials on himself, hoping to atone for his guilt. An open conversation brings people closer together. Steve, upon learning about the close relationship between the subjects, decides to use it for his own purposes. When Jeff arrives, he must choose to give Darkenflox to Lizzie or leave. Jeff refuses, but the doctor gives him time to think until morning. When morning comes, Steve watches as Jeff fulfills all his demands. Soon, the curator realizes that the guy is controlling his drug delivery device, not what's on Lizzie. It turns out that Jeff got the remote for the device from Steve, who had himself been under the curator's control for a long time. The inmate gets all the information he needs from Steve and convinces him to open up. Main entrance. The curator manages to grab the remote and administer the maximum dose of Darkenflox to the girl. After that, he smashes the smartphone. The couple manages to break free from the effects of the drugs and run out of the lab. But at that moment, Steve motivates all the inmates to stop the escapees. A real hunt indeed begins for the guy and the girl, as the enraged inmates want to literally tear the rebels apart. At the same time, Steve is trying to escape with the drugs. Police boats are already heading to the island, which Mark managed to call a little earlier. Steve manages to leave Spiderhead on a small plane before the police arrive. There's a malfunction in his device and all the drugs start entering the man's bloodstream. Cupid makes Steve see hallucinations and believe that the nearest island is a true paradise. Mark, while on the boat, sees the curator circling over the sea and then crashing into the rocks. Jeff and Lizzie hijack a boat and manage to sail away before the police arrive. The loving couple finally gets their long-awaited freedom and sails off into the sunset. End of that movie. It's over. We have a really pretty decent film with indeed very good actors that tried to answer the question, what would happen if people learned to control their hormones, feelings, and sensations? The idea is good, but it's better not to go against nature. At the time of this review, the film has a rating of 5.5 on IMDB. How would you rate this film? Be sure to let me know in the comments. That brings us to the end of our video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you found it interesting, then definitely support this video with a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our new episodes. Well, that was Stars with you, who is already preparing a brief summary for you. Stay healthy, watch only good movies, and play only good games. Good luck to everyone and goodbye.